In this chapter, we're going to unwrap the last elements of the model, and those include the back walls, which you can see here, which also include the interior faces of the three little windows on the tower, and also the interior faces of the three large windows on the front of the building. We also need to unwrap the door, and you can see also we have, just turn off scene display here, we've got the faces on the interior of the door itself, the areas inside the door's window, and this little ledge here above the window. We'll also be unwrapping the chimney, which you can see here, and these two elements that you can see here, and these are called the supports, and the idea is that they just support this front of the building, which juts out here, projects outwards, and may need some support from below. So these are kind of like buttresses, I suppose. So let's have a look at the UVs before we move on and unwrap those elements. Okay, so here we have the UVs for the back wall of the building. These strips of faces here are the faces from the large windows on the front of the building. In my original layout, the thin face from between the two inner walls was actually laid out on here. As there wasn't actually much space on that particular layout, I decided to use the space here. It doesn't really matter which way you do it, but you can try different techniques. The door we have here. The faces from the interior of the window of the door I have here. These are the faces here. These faces are the interior faces from the small windows on the front of the tower, and these faces here are the interior faces of the door surround. So if we go on to the next map, this is the layout for the chimney. We've got the side pipe of the chimney. This is the sides of the pipe, the underside and top side of these pipes, the top of the chimney and the bottom of the chimney, and then you've got these little discs which allow the main body of the chimney to join on to this large cylinder here. You can see I've unwrapped it in this direction. There's the top of the chimney, there's the top pipe, and there's the bottom pipe. If we skip on to the next section, then we finish off with the supports, which you can see are very simply mapped out here. There's the side of the support, and then you've got the, I believe that's the top of the support, and the underside of the support. Okay, so we'll start off by working on, I think we'll go for the chimney first. So let me just hide the supports and the back wall and door. We'll just zoom in here, and I'm going to show you a slightly different technique for this object. I'm going to actually use the standard UV mapping tools to give us a good start on this model, and that's because it's got so many basic primitive surfaces in here. This is basically planar, this disk area here. This is a cylinder, so we can just basically map those areas using those tools. So let me just select some faces, and I'm just going to apply the UV map to that area, and I'm going to choose cylindrical, fit, make sure that's fitting fine, that's cool. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to do edit poly, or you could actually use poly select, it depends which way you want to do it really. Just use poly select for now. Select these faces here, go down, UV map, and again cylindrical, fit that. And we'll just go down again and we'll go for poly select once more. Select these faces here, apply UV map to those, cylindrical, fit. So now we've got a pretty good cylindrical set of faces going on there. Next we need to do a couple of planar maps. So again we need poly select, go in, and in this case it actually would be really cool to have the select by planar tool. So I'm just going to come out of there, get rid of that, right click the object and convert to editable poly. We'll just collapse it down. And now I can go in here and I can use the biangle tool in the editable poly. Just put that down. That selects that perfectly. And now I'm going to go and I'm going to apply a UV map to that. Planar's cool. Make sure it's fitted on there. Right click, convert to editable poly. That's great. Go in again. Select these faces, turn on biangle. You can see that's actually not working there. It's a little bit too large. So we'll just reduce it down until it actually doesn't select everything. Oops. There we go, that's looking cool. And now we can go and UV map. It's on planar, that's fitted on there, convert to editable poly. And that's got us part of the way there to having a nice unwrap. We could probably do the same thing for this little face here. So let me just finish off by doing that. UV map, planar, fit, that's great. And the scales will be wildly out at first, but we can always fix that with the unwrap tool. So now that we've got our basic mapping, let's unwrap it. So let's add an unwrap tool, and we'll just go in straight away and start editing. Just expand this up here a bit, use up the space more effectively. We'll just zoom out, turn off the checker map for now. And firstly, I'm just going to go in and break this up into different elements. So let's select this object here. Be aware that I've got ignore back facing on, so for this we probably want to turn that off. So let's do that again. That's got the entire chunk there. Break, shift, move over to the right. You can see how quick you can work in this tool. Select the top element here, right click, break, move over here, go down to this bottom element here, select that, right click, break. I'll just move that up here. Now we need to break off these two elements, so I'm going to use planar angle. It's not big enough, let's make that a bit bigger. Yeah, that's cool. Right click, break, move that down until it's out of the way. Select this element here, that's cool. Break. So we've separated those out. We can actually overlap them now because we can always select by element once they're broken up. Then we can get the disk on top here, as you can see, and just make sure it's detached from everything. We'll just break that, move it over here, and this disk doesn't really matter, so we can just break that, and we can stick that wherever we want. It's never going to be seen. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to map this area here. So for that I'm just going to use the unfolding tools. So we'll select these faces, make sure we've got everything there. Yep, we have. Again, we don't need to see this face, so we'll just leave that out of our unfold. Yeah, that's looking cool. So then we'll go into mapping, unfold mapping. Okay, there it is. And I'll just make sure that's broken off, move it over here. What we need to do now is untangle some of these faces because it's all one big jumble and it's overlapping each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select faces one by one and see if this works. This will be the quickest way. Yeah, we've got that. We can break that. We can just move that over here. Let's see if we can do the same here for these elements. Almost. Let's try that. Yeah, that got that. Yeah, that's looking cool. We can just break that off. We need to align these, but we'll do that when we're finished here. And then we need to just get these two elements, and I'll just try and see if we've got just separate elements here at the moment. Yep, looks like we have, so that's cool. We've broken everything apart there. They're all going to have the same scale, so we haven't got any scale issues, so we just need to really realign things to make it a little bit neater and easier to kind of arrange things in the final UV layout. So I'm going to actually flip this around here. So let me just mirror here, I think, on that axis. And we're going to get this object and just rotate it around. Actually, the easiest thing to do is just to do it manually. I'll just turn on the freeform gizmo and move it down here into position. Move this here. Oops, just get the center, just move that there. And then now we can just rotate it manually. So it's got a similar kind of alignment. And let's see what would work best. That's pretty snug. And I'd say they're both pretty similar really. So let's go for that as an arrangement where they're both very close to each other and taking up as little space as possible. The next thing we need to do is get these two and align them. So first of all, let's just get this one here aligned so it's pretty much square with the world. Let me just rotate that around. It's looking pretty good. Not bad. We'll do the same thing here, and for this we'll just move this into position here, move the center point down there. Oops, a little bit fiddly there. Let's move that down there, put it in the right kind of position. We just put that in place, and now we can just rotate it around using this tool. Obviously we want to be as near square as we can. There we are. That's great. And we know now that these have the same scale, so we want to keep these close to each other and try and keep that scale going. All we need to do now is just move things around to arrange things better and make sure that we haven't got any scale problems. So let's do that. So let's just get this face down here. We know it's not going to be seen, so we can just move that out of the way. It's just rubbish, basically. If it was needed, we could always then map it later on and put it into a position where it needs to map, but it's never going to be seen, so we can just stick it over there. We have got this one face here, which we can see comes from here on the mesh, and you can see that when I selected the faces earlier and I did the cylindrical mapping, that it didn't actually get this face here. So this is actually a problem that we need to fix, and we can see it actually fits into this space over here. So if we just move this over here, we'll try one of the stitching tools. That may actually do the trick for us. So let's just select, let me turn off select element, just select that, mapping tools, stitch selected, and you can see it's tried to scale things and it's not working out so far. So let's try using the bias, see if that gives us any luck. No, that's not going to work, so we'll just cancel that. We'll just do it manually. So the problem at the moment for a start is that the scale of this is just wrong. So what we need to do is we'll just do this manually, and I'll just select this face here, move it into position, just align this manually, just leave a tiny little gap, and then just grab this edge here, just shift drag that in until it's in the right kind of position, and then we can start moving that up here. I'm just going to get till this area joins up here. That's looking pretty cool. And now we can just use the weld tool to weld this, weld selected. It looks like it didn't actually get it, so let's have a look at the advanced options. Let's try 0 to 2. We'll go with that, and just make sure we've got our vertices selected again and weld selected. And before we do that again, let's just check that we haven't got this face flipped over here or something. So let's just see if we've got corresponding vertices. Select this vertex, that seems to match to there. So let's try doing a target weld. There we are. That's gone into position there. Just zoom out and see if we can do the same here. That's welded there. So you can see when it comes down to it, sometimes you just have to get your hands dirty and get in there and join things together. Just weld up that. We've just got this last vertex here, which will get rid of this little seam, and we can just grab that. That's welded. Now, as you can see now, we haven't got any seams there, no stretching, everything's looking really cool. So the next thing we need to do is decide on a scale. This large cylinder here is obviously going to take up most of the space, so let's scale that down until it fills the sort of the same kind of amount of space that we have here in our area. Just turn on select element, just put it in here, then I'm just going to hold on control, scale that down until it's about half the height. So you can see, you know, this tube here needs to be pretty big as well. So I'll just get this to be roughly the right kind of scale. And then what we'll do is we'll just adjust everything else by eye. So let's select this element here. This is the little tube down here. And if I just put this in position, we'll scale it down until the checkers are roughly the same kind of size as up here. And then we'll just scale the height as well. So let's just do that. Scale that down, 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 down. It's going to need to be pretty small, really. So let me just get the square on. I think this is actually maybe a little bit too small at the moment. Let me just do that until the checkers are about the right kind of size. And then we just need to squash it vertically. So let's just hold on shift and do that until we've got our checkers to be pretty much square. That's pretty cool. It's got the right kind of aspect for that. This object is at the top here, I think. Yeah. So we can just scale this right down. We know this is pretty small. And we'll just put it over here for now. We'll put that into position later. we know that this tube and this tube, and this tube should have the same kind of circumference, so we can actually use this as the basis for the scaling of this one. So we'll just put this into position here, and then we'll just use uniform scale like this. We can see now if we've got the right kind of scale. It looks like the width is alright, it's not bad, but it's maybe a little bit too large, so we'll use that information to kind of scale both. So let's get them both the same first, they're both the same circumference. And then what we'll do is we'll just scale both at the same time to get them both to be correct. So let's just do that. That looks like it's better, the kind of scale there. Now we just need to select this one and just scale it vertically until we get square checkers. As you can see, that's looking pretty good. So we've got good scaling there. Next we need to select these areas, and again these two elements have the same scale, so we're going to just overlap them over each other, and that's just so we can adjust both of them at the same time. So let's just get these overlapped. This is just to make it easier to see what I'm doing. I'm just going to pop this up here, start scaling down until we get something near to what the scale should be. Let's just put these over here a little bit. You can see that's not bad actually. Let's just do a little bit of finessing. Just needs to be a little bit smaller, I think. If you look at that, that's pretty much bang on, isn't it, really? I think maybe a little bit that way. Okay, we don't want them overlapping unless we want exactly the same texture, because that's what will happen. If they're overlapping the same UV space, the UVs here will be exactly the same as the UVs under here, and we'll end up with exactly the same texture. If that's not a problem, that's a really great way to save on texturing space by using the same texture in two spots. If it is a problem, then obviously you can just grab one of the elements and just move it so it's got its own UV space, so it can be textured individually. Now we just have these last elements to be put in here, and we need to kind of scale these so that we've got a similar scale going on. So let's just grab this bunch of objects and we'll move it a little bit closer just so we can start honing it in, and then let's just start scaling it down, and you can see we've got pretty close to the kind of size there, maybe a little bit smaller. We'll try and get that to match up. That's pretty good, I think. And we can just move it into position. We've got a nice piece of space there. We'll just bunch it up here with these elements. We seem to have some space up here as well. So we have got some scale here, some scope to actually rescale this afterwards. Let's just select this all. Move it over here slightly. We'll just move this down here. So it really does fit in to this space nice and neatly. And we'll just get this object, move it up here. We know it should actually fit in the top of this tube, so we can just do that. We can just put this into position here, then we'll just do control until it's up to the right kind of height. We know that's actually at the right scale because it should actually fill that hole. We can just put that in a space down here. We've got plenty of room now. In fact, let's try and scale things up a bit until we use up a bit more space. As you can see, we're kind of limited by this object here. Maybe if we rotated it, then we could get a little bit more space going here. Let's try moving these out the way for a moment, just up here. And let's just get both of these. Obviously these don't have to be together, so we can make some more space in that respect. So we could try getting this and rotating it, sticking it here. We've got some nice space in here. Move these up here slightly, use up this space. And we could just then move this object up here, move this down here, pop it in this space, and then we could try and give ourselves a little bit more space just by rotating this, pulling it down here, and now we've got a little bit more room. We'll just try this out, let's see what we get. Let's try scaling that. Now if we went up to here, would we still have the room to put these in? I don't think we would, by the looks of it. We haven't actually got enough room, and these are sticking over anyway, so we can't really go that far, so we need to just pull this in here. That's cool. And now we can probably just get these, rotate these over And let's try sticking this here. You can see it's like a kind of 3D jigsaw really. We're just trying to fit things into this space as best as we can. Nothing overlapping. There we go, that's looking pretty cool. And again, I'm going to try and align these up so that it's easy to copy across the same textures in our paint package very quickly. So there we go, we've got our chimney laid out there quite nicely. Let's move on now to the next element. So let's carry on by looking at the simpler objects, and we'll have a look at the supports next. Now these originally were two separate objects, and they were exactly the same object, the same vertex count, and in that circumstance the easiest way to actually texture these objects would be to apply this one UV unwrap modifier to one of them, unwrap the UVs on it, and then save out those UVs and then copy them over to this object using a second unwrap modifier. In this case they've been attached together, so we're just going to have to unwrap all these faces twice, as it were. So let's get on with that. We'll just add an unwrap modifier there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just open up the editor. Let me just open unwrap. Here we go. And put this into position. Just make sure it's the right kind of scale. Make sure we're making good use of the space. And you can see as at the moment they're planar mapped, so everything's on the same plane. And let's just make some selections. What I'm going to try and do is here I'm going to try and select these front faces here and turn this into a cluster. So I want to ignore back facing on, and that should be fine I think if we make a selection. Let's see what we get here. Just going to turn off pelt seams and change the seam display to thin seam so we can see what's going on a bit more clearly. That's got all the faces there, and it's got all the faces there. Check on the back. Yeah, that's cool. Open up the editor, right click, break. That's broken that off as a cluster. We can move that over here now. Next we're going to do the same thing for the faces over here. Exactly the same technique. Shift selection, make sure we get everything. Yeah, that's cool. Zoom in there. Don't think we got that face there. No, we didn't. So there we are, that got that. Go in here, break, move this over here. Now we need to get the back faces. We can use exactly the same technique. Just go to the back, select, break that off. That's great. Go over here, select these back faces as well, and break, move those over there. Now that we've done this, we've actually effectively broken off the edge faces here into their own clusters, so we can actually select those by element inside the editor. And also they're actually planar, so it's also equally easy just to actually just select them using planar selections. So if I select this object here, you'll see we've got that particular set here. Now normally I would use unfold mapping, but in this case that's actually going to split apart the edges here. So it'll split that edge and all of these edges basically, and it's not going to make a really good unwrap. So in this case it's actually better to use the flatten mapping, and we can just in this case use the 45-degree angle default. We'll OK that, and you can see that's worked just great. If we zoom in, just move that down here, select this, same tool, OK, move that down here, and you can see how quickly you can work with this editor once you get familiar with it. So we'll just move those over here a bit, select these UVs here, flatten mapping, OK, we'll just put them up above, and we'll do the same thing here, select these faces, mapping, flatten, OK, we'll just move these up here. Make sure again that they're close but they do not overlap. That's great, that's looking pretty cool. And now what we need to do is just treat these faces here to make sure that they're not distorted. You can see the edge faces are looking pretty cool, but if you actually look at the underside you can see we've got some streaking going on here, and we've also got some streaking going on in this direction here, and that's really not very good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use unfold. So just select all these faces here, mapping, unfold mapping, and press on OK, and then I can just move this over here. And actually what you can see is there seems to be a bug, I think, in 3ds Max 8, or it's actually some feature that I don't fully understand. But in some circumstances when you unfold, you get one vertex which gets stuck on UV0, and nothing really seems to do anything about that. And as a workaround, something that I found is if you go to Mapping, Unfold, turn off Normalize Clusters, and OK that, it'll do the operation again, but it won't actually normalize and pack the UVs into the normal space. But we have a separate packing tool, so we can go to Pack UVs, Normalize Clusters, it'll do exactly the same thing again, and now if we move it, you'll find that we haven't got this bug. So we've done basically exactly the same thing, but in 2 different steps there. And we just need to rotate this around so it has the same kind of orientation as it did before. So we'll use the same technique for all of these in case we have the same bug. It's quite likely it's going to happen again, so we'll just OK that, and then pack. And then we can just rotate those around and move them out the way. Just leave it there. Turn on Select Element and move that there. Move this here. Same technique again. Unfold Mapping, turn off Normalize, OK. Tools, Pack, OK. That's great. We'll just rotate that round, move that up there, select this, Tools. You know, if you find a bug, it's very easy to complain about it, and obviously, you know, that's the natural thing to do, but it's often a good idea just to get on with things, find workarounds, and you know, get that going. And then you can report that bug, and hopefully by the next version of the software, that will be fixed. So in the meantime, you have to do these workarounds, which is not ideal, obviously, but it's a lot better than just sitting there feeling sorry for yourself. So let me just put this into position here. Make sure we've got these side by side, so if we make any adjustments to these, we can do it in one go. Same thing for this element. This has a partner here, exactly the same object. Let's just pop this into position. That's great. And now we can just move these out the way. We'll move this into position here, and I'm just going to rotate this around till we've got this top part basically horizontal. So let's just rotate that around. There we are. Put that into position in one corner here. We'll do the same thing for here. We'll just rotate that around until we've got the same kind of thing going on. Just move this here. There we are, that's nicely aligned. Pop that into position here. Now what we can do is we can just select all of these, hold down Control, do a uniform scale, and we don't want them to touch, so after we've done a bit, let's just put it back into position. Yeah, we still got a little bit more space maybe, but what we've got to be aware of here is that we need some space to pop these back in, and we can see we've actually used up pretty much all of that space. So we need to balance this, and we need to get these to be the same scale as these. So let's see if rescaling these will actually help that. Let's have a look at the scale that we have going on the back here. And you can see the faces of the back are actually a bit too large at the moment, and that's why our checker is too small. So let's just get these and try scaling these down until we get a similar kind of scale. So let's zoom in there. And it's maybe a little bit too large. It's probably about right somewhere around there. You can always, you know, shift up and down if you want to see if you can get these two match up. That's pretty good. And we got the same issue here. So let's have a look on the underside. See what we have going on. Again, in this case, looks too large. So which means we have to shrink this down. So I'm just going to hold down Control. Start scaling, and we want to get obviously the checkers to be the same kind of scale. That looks pretty good. Now you can see now this is very large, and these are looking smaller, so we need to scale everything down. Let's just scale everything down. What I need to do is fit this into this space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put this in diagonally, and I'm going to put these on either side. So let's just put these up here, out of the way. It's just temporary. You need to shift things around as you're working. And we'll just get these two faces here and rotate these around. put these into position here. There we are. And let's try and do the same thing now for these. Just put those roughly in position, rotate these around, and we need a little bit of space, I think, to just fit these in. So we're going to have to shrink things just a little bit more, and that's just to allow it to fit into this space here. So let's just get everything, hold down Control, and we'll just uniform scale it. Be conservative with this, you know, we don't want to shrink things down too much and waste space. So that's looking cool. We can move this up here a little bit until it clears. Yeah, as it cleared there, and if it doesn't clear both ends, we can always just rotate it a little bit, so it's fitting in there a little bit better. And now I think we've got enough space maybe to fit this in here. Yeah, we have. So that's great. So you can carry on doing this, going through iterations, trying to get those to fit in there a little bit better. But you can see that's pretty cool. Each of these is unique. If we wanted to save more space, we could actually double these over each other. And another technique obviously is to go back and delete one of the supports, UV map one of them, and then copy it across, and that would then allow us to get rid of one of these sets of UVs, and we could have a lot more space here. That's probably the optimal way to do it. If you want each one of these supports to be unique, then you need unique UVs on each support, and you will have to use this kind of layout, as you can see here. So if we look at the supports now, you can see the mapping's looking pretty cool. So we can just go off there, and we'll just hide that, and we'll move on to the last element, and probably the most complicated one, not in the entire model but in this particular chapter anyway, and that's just the back wall and the door and the various window frames. So the back wall, that's going to be a no-brainer. Let's just select everything, add an unwrap, open the unwrap tool, scale it out until we've used up the space that we've got available to us. The back wall, that's going to be pretty easy, I think. We just need to select the faces there. Just turn on selection, select those faces, make sure we get everything. There's a little strip there as well, so let's make sure we get that all. Yeah, that's great. Go into the editor. I don't think we need to do that much really, so let's just move it over here, and we'll just select these bottom faces here, and I think we can just pull these down to expose those faces there and give those UV mapping. That's basically that done. Next we have these three faces here, and these are as you can see, we've got the windows here. So what we need to do is actually unwrap these areas. So I'm going to select each of these individually, and you can see we've got those interior faces for the window there, and I'm going to just right click, break, and we're going to do the same for each one. Break, just making sure that these are not attached to anything. Once we've got that, we'll unfold the mapping, and we'll OK that. Let's try moving that. We've got that bug again, so let me just undo that, and we'll just do that again. Flatten mapping, sorry, unfold mapping, turn off the normalize. It becomes gigantic, but that's okay. We can just go to pack UVs, OK that, and let's try moving that, and that's cool. You can see it's got rid of the bug. We've sidestepped it. Unfold mapping, same technique again. OK, just move that down. That's great. Here, unfold, turn off normalize, tools, pack UVs, OK, and that's the windows done. It's as simple as that. You can see how fast it is. So I'll just move this down here. We've got select elements turned on now. I can just move this into position. I know I'm getting the entire element in one go. Align these, and that's that done. We've done those interior windows. They are unwrapped successfully. We've done the back wall. So we'll use exactly the same technique here for these little windows. We'll just go break, break, and break. And these are the little windows on the tower, and these are just the interior faces just inside the window frames. So once we've done that, we'll use exactly the same technique as we've just done. We'll go to unfold mapping, tools, pack UVs, OK, and you can see it's just unfolded that. It's produced a slightly different setup this time. That's because of there's a slight angle difference in the faces there. but that's not a big problem. Tools, pack UVs, okay, move that down here, and we'll just do the last one now. Unfold, okay, tools, pack UVs, okay, and as you can see, we've got our windows unwrapped. They're all a little bit chaotic. As you can see, they're all kind of in different patterns. This one is kind of like a mirror of this one. So what we'll do is, just to make this easier to pack together, we'll just flip these around a little bit, just to make things a little bit easier. So let's go for flip horizontal on this one. That's going to match it up with this one here. So we can now snuggle these up against each other and take up less UV space. And we need to do the same thing for this one here. We need to flip it horizontally, and we need to flip it vertically. And now we can just pack these together so they take up as little space as possible. And that's just the little windows done. So obviously they're at the wrong scale at the moment, they're pretty huge, and these are also too, but as in the other chapters, we'll rescale those towards the end of this chapter. Let's move on now and do the door. And we've got this area that sticks out here. We've got the door itself, and then we've got the little window frame inside the door. So let's do the window frame first. Let's just get those faces inside there, and we'll just manually select these. So let's just do Alt-Shift selection. We've got those, and there they are. We'll just make sure they're broken off, break, unfold them. We'll just avoid this bug just by using this technique. Pack the UVs, and there you go, it's unfolded it. It's a bit of a funny unfold really, and not necessarily ideal, so maybe we'll massage that later just to make it a bit easier to work with. The other option is, if you don't really mind there being seams here, is to just break each one of these apart and then align them to each other. That's probably one of the best methods here. So I'll just break. So those are all broken apart now. Yep. And what I can do now is just stack these on top of each other and then align them to each other. So we'll first of all get this, put this so it's pretty much horizontal. That's great. Get this one, same deal, horizontal. Yeah, that's cool. Horizontal, not quite. Let's just offset that again and then do that. Yeah, that's looking great. And we'll do the same deal here. Just rotate that around. That's bang on, I think. And then we can just stack them on top of each other, really. So just stack like for like, so we know we've got the same kind of size faces. I don't really think a seam is going to be a big issue here, so I think it's probably better to stack them like this than to use the original layout, which got rid of the seam but used up so much UV space to do that. So we've got the interior of the window. Next we can do the door and various other bits. Let's do the interior faces here again. So let's just select these. And I'm actually going to treat this little element here, this lip that comes out, as a separate object. And we can just get this door and we can just unfold this as a separate element as well. That's not really a biggie. So we've got those three faces selected. Let's go into the editor, break them off, unfold, and then pack. And there we are. That's those done. Those are the faces inside the door. We're going to get the door itself now. Let's just get this out of there. And go into the editor, break, mapping, unfold. Okay, just unnormalize that. We'll pack it in again. There it is. We can just rotate it around until we've got the right kind of orientation. We'll pop it over here. Like I said, don't worry about the scale. We'll fix that later on. And we've just got one last element to do now, and that's just this lip that sticks out here. So let's just try unfolding this. Let's see what we get. Unfolding may do the trick. It may be that it produces a mess. We'll just have to see, really. I think that's got it. And we'll just go mapping, unfold, and then tools, pack. Okay. And let's see what we've got. I think it's done a pretty good job, but it's done a funny unfold. I would probably say that this here, these faces, I think if we just select these faces, you'll see that these are the underside faces, and I would probably rather have no seam here and have a seam here, maybe. So we can always rejig things. We can just break that off, rotate that around, and then if we go and select these edges here, you can see these are on the other side, so we just need to do a double rotation on this. And now we can just get this to stitch together with this. So we'll go to Tools, Stitch Selected. There we are, that's brought that together, and it's also stitched that edge there. So we've got a very good neat unwrap of this element here now. So this large cluster here is obviously going to take up the vast majority of the space that we have available to us in this bitmap, but we obviously need some space for these other elements. So the easiest thing to do at the moment is to probably put this into position. So just probably a good idea to turn on select by element when you're doing this kind of stuff. So I can just move that into position. We'll zoom in on here, make sure it's packed right in there nicely in the corner. And we need a little bit of space for the doors and wherever, so we'll leave a little bit of space in kind of scale with the door. If the door's this kind of size, then we need that kind of space there. So we'll just scale that like that. We'll start off with the door. Let's get that to be the same kind of scale. So what we need to do now is be able to see these kind of two elements. It's going to be tough to do because we can't really see both of them at the same time too easily, but I think we can get it there. So if I just move that there, oops, not quite, there we go. So now we need to scale down this door, scale it down until we get the same kind of scale. That's pretty good. There we go. So we're not going to have too much of a scale issue there. Now we've got that in position, we can just rotate it and put it here. And we know now that we can scale up these two clusters together, and the rest of the space we can use for everything else in the scene. So let's just zoom up here, scale this up a tad, and yeah, that's still within the boundary, and the same there. So that's looking great. Yep, it's not overlapping, which is cool. So what we need to do now is get these and make sure these are the right kind of scale. So these are the three window frames, so they need to be quite large. So as you can see, they're not far off it actually. I think we'll just stick with what we've got there, because from what I can see, if you look at the size of the checker here and the checker there, there's very little difference, so I think that's looking pretty cool. Now we need a big long strip to fit these in, so let's just rotate these and we can put them down the side here. Let's see if they actually fit in there completely. And probably what we'll do if they don't fit in, we'll just scale them, because it's only a very tiny difference. So yeah, we'll just scale those down slightly. And next we can do the interior of the door frame, so we just need to pop that there. We need to be able to see that door frame in comparison to something else, and we can just use the door. So let's just zoom right in there, get the two together, and then start doing some scaling, try and get those to match up. So I'll just scale that down, it's almost there. We can just shift that around a bit just so that we get, it's pretty good, isn't it? We just need to make a slight adjustment. There we are. I think if we go like that, just do a slight adjustment there, that's pretty good, I think. So that's looking cool. We can obviously just rotate it through 90 degrees, pop it down the side here, we've got plenty of space. The next thing we need to do is this object here, which fits above the door. Now this is going to be a little bit problematical, because you can see that the width of this should be the width of the door, and at the moment that means that these lugs which stick out on either side, they're going to be a problem, I think. So one thing we could do is we could actually make these lugs smaller by detaching them, rotating them and attaching them up here, but it's not really going to make that much of a difference at the end of the day. So we'll just rotate this around and put it in position, and we'll just scale it. We'll just try and make some room for it. Let's move it into position, make sure we get the right kind of scaling here. Put that there. Oops. Put that there. And we'll just move this point here into position, and we'll just do a nice uniform scale. And as you can see now, that is pretty much the right scale, I think. Yeah, not bad. So we need to fit this in, and let's see if we rotate this around. We could try fitting it up here, but you're still going to have this lug sticking out here, so we probably need to make a little bit of a concession and a little bit of a scale here to fit this in. So let's try just scaling down ever so slightly, and we're all keeping the same relative scales here. And let's see what we have here. Can we fit this in this gap? Yes, we can, and then we can move this down here slightly. So now we've made enough room to actually just squeeze that in. So that's great. I've got that there. Doesn't really matter where this door is, we can just move it around as we see fit. We just need to fit in these last elements now. So this is the door window frame area, so we know this is going to be pretty small, and we can just scale this down and get it roughly right. You can see that we've got long pieces and two short pieces. This is the long side, this is the short side. So if we can get these long pieces to match up with this length here, we know we've got the right scale. So let's just pop that in position, uniform scale, pop that down, and that is now the right size. We can put that wherever we fancy, pop it there. And now we just have these little window frames. We're just going to have to do these by eye, I think. So let's just go around until we can see them. They're very small. As you can see at the moment, the checkers on them are pretty large. So let's try and get a view like this. Maybe let's try looking from the left-hand side or the front view. See if we can actually see those. What about the left-hand view? Yeah, that gives us an idea. Obviously we're going to have to hide and unhide the editor. We'll just put these up here. They're going to end up here somewhere, I think. Start scaling these down. They're going to be pretty small really, so let's go over the top and then we can just scale back up again, I think. So let's have a look at that. It could be right, it's hard to tell, isn't it really? We need to really see an entire checker. So let's try moving this over here. Just moving that. It looks a little bit large, doesn't it? So we need to scale up a bit, just to make it a bit smaller. Move this here. There we are, look at that, and that is pretty close, I think. I think that'll do the trick. So we now have a pretty decent layout for the back wall and all of those extra little elements that went along with it. So let's just zoom out here. So we've unwrapped the back wall, all the small little elements, the chimney and the supports in this chapter, and that's basically wrapped up the unwrapping of the UVs on this model. What I'm going to do in the next chapter is I'm going to show you this model where it's all attached together again, and I'm going to show you how to fix up any small issues with the UV mapping. There are a couple of little areas where there are tiny little problems that need to be adjusted. Once that's done, I'm going to then move on and show you how the one of the automatic unwrapping tools can be used in conjunction with the render to texture feature in 3ds Max, and that'll give you another idea of how flexible this tool is, and it can actually be used by another modifier to augment its functionality. So let's move on now, and we'll look at those two elements in the next chapter.